Hello. Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me okay? I have a fan on, so as you know, it's a very hot day. Okay. Let's... Hi, everyone.
Hi.
You guys are so on time. How are you doing?
Great. Can you hear me
Great.
well?
Yeah, I can hear you well. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, I have like a fan directly at me,
I have it too.
so
Not sure I should cut it off.
sweating. So I just introduce myself to everyone who is joining right now. My name is Jenny, and I'm the production manager for Special Special. And we have here with us Tiri Kananurak and Sebastian Morales.
He went to
And
close the window.
we both have plants in our background,
Yes.
artfully placed. So this interview tonight is a part of our series of interviews with artists that are part of our current show called Artist Tools. And we just reopened. So it's open now on the weekends. You can stop by and you can also make an appointment to come by during the week. So the show was originally, it actually just opened right before the shutdown happened. So it's been extended to the end of August. So you should definitely come by and check it out. The show is called Artist Tools, and it showcases tools that are made by artists for their art making practice or for everyday living. And we have over 30 tools made by artists all around the world. And for those of you who don't know Special, we are a art gallery, shop, and producer of art editions based in East Village. And where are you two coming from? You guys are
from
in
Thailand.
Thailand,
And I'm from Mexico, and right now we're
Mexico.
yeah.
And how long have you two been living in New York?
Me,
You're in Brooklyn, right?
6.5 years. No. You.
I think now it's about 4 years.
Okay, that's pretty new. I feel like I'm nearing that first decade in New York. So I'm just going to introduce the two of you quickly, and then we'll go into talking about your tool that is in our show.
Yeah.
So Jerry, we actually met about, I think, 5 years ago when you were modeling at that time, I think when you first came to New York. So she modeled for one of my photo shoots. So it's been really fun to see how you've developed in your work throughout the last few years. Thierry originally studied exhibition design for her undergrad in Bangkok, and when she came to New York, she studied interactive telecommunications at NYU. She produces performance art that combines her passion for technological consumerism, machine learning, and language. Thierry is also the co-founder of Nuum Collective, which is a collective of choreographers, composers, programmers, visual artists, and interaction designers who are committed to a multidisciplinary approach to creating performance work. Sebastian Morales is a Mexican artist, engineer, and researcher. He received his bachelor's in mechanical engineering and a master's in interactive telecommunications at NYU. He develops interactive works at the intersection of living systems, robotics, and digital culture. Currently, Thierry is doing a residency at Culture Hub, which is an art and technology community in the East Village creating works with emerging technologies. And together, the two of you have just kind of recently started working together as a team. And you've performed multiple times online during the quarantine as Morikana. And they are also both a part of the School for Poetic Computation, which is an artist-run school where students and faculty work together to explore the intersections of code, design, hardware, and theory. Did I miss anything?
No. Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you two here today, and your work is really fascinating. So I'm sure everyone's going to enjoy hearing you two discuss your work. So we're going to start off with the tool that you have on display at our show, which is the Dongle Synth 2.0. Do you have it on hand? And
Yeah,
want
we
to
have.
show us?
We have one of the prototypes, the original prototypes. Right here.
Awesome.
Let's see. I don't know if you can see it here.
Yes.
So the dongle is like a USB dongle, as the one you might be familiar with. Normally, you would connect it to your computer.
Oh, I need a USB
But
dongle.
for this case, I guess this was in response to the call of artist tools, and Tiri and I were thinking about what are our tools, everyday tools, and the dongle is just one of them that we carry everywhere we go. So we
So
decided
these are
to.
one of the tools that something that you're always carrying with you.
Yes. Sort of like can live without it. We have a lot of USB hub to connect with, and so you're like, oh, we should just make it more fun and still usable. And this dongle can use as a regular dongle. So this 3-port still work as a regular USB. And this port is the special one that we hacked it. So we adding some code, and then this one, when you plug in, you can make your keyboard turn into a synthesizer.
Yeah. So normally it would be a wire, but right now we're using a wireless keyboard.
Oh,
When you connect it, then you can also connect a speaker or some headphones. So right here we have a small speaker. And then as you type your emails,
Can you hear the sound, Will?
yeah, I can hear it a little bit.
Okay.
we can make it louder.
That speaker is so cute.
And then there's more features you can do. Like it also works as a looping machine. So if you press any of the shift buttons,
Oh yeah.
yeah, and then you can add layers, or if you want to delete them, you can intuitively delete them. And then you can create something else.
Yeah, and if anybody is having trouble hearing, you can also check the stories. There's a little demonstration on there as well. And there's also something special you can do with the caps lock key, right?
Yeah, so it works much better on wired keyboards, but here you can see the caps lock blinking.
Yeah.
And that's keeping track of the tempo. But here, because of the wireless connection, is not as fast as a wire keyboard, you would see it. You can really see the tempo.
You wanna
But
try?
you can't control the tempo.
Yeah, you can.
You can.
So let's make a simple beat. So now it's looping.
Oh,
But now
yeah.
if I go forward, or I can go back. Or faster.
Oh. That's so neat. I love that it kind of has this secret component to it. You can still use it as a functional USB hub, but then there's this little secret port that turns the keyboard into a synthesizer.
Yeah, and you can still use it as an actual keyboard. So if you were to connect it to a computer, you can still type. But then the caps lock sort of messes everything up, and then you have like message and alternating letters, sizes.
Yeah, and you can actually hear it in performance. A few months ago, they did a improv synthesizer performance with Britt Mosley, who created a ceramic teapot synthesizer. So they did a performance together. They jammed together online remotely, and you can find that on our YouTube channel as well. So
Yeah, that
you
was
can really
really
see
fun.
it in motion.
That was
That's
a really
awesome.
fun,
Yeah.
jamming. Well, because Rick tools also really cool. Like he made the synthesizer from the scratch, and we
I know.
sort of have like kind of similar tools. So we're like, oh, why don't we just jam?
Yeah.
And then the result was really fun.
Yeah. So have you made any other kinds of tools for everyday living or working in your practice?
Not like everyday too.
Or other type of tools that you've hacked?
Yes. I'm trying to think. I mean, like most of my work, like especially like I use like trash and I recycle stuff. So I'll call that hack.
So it's
Yeah.
also very functional. Like we have a clock in the house that also displays messages, and it's like connected to the internet, and then but it's just things that are hacked together.
We have a question. Do you guys use can you guys see the questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you guys use the USB hub every day?
I mean this one, or you mean this one, or the regular USB hub? I mean I use the USB
We use
hub.
for sure a
Every
regular
day.
USB hub. We use it every day. This one
Yeah.
only when we want to spice things up.
Also, I want to mention that this Dongle Synth 2.0 is available for purchase on our on Special Specials website. So definitely check that out. Not the regular. How often do you use this dongle?
When we perform.
Are you planning on incorporating it into future performances? Maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I can bring down for Sarah and Taylor.
Yeah, we can go. We can go. Play with Sarah. But no, this one. I mean, this one right here is a prototype. So I mean, you can see it. It's sort of. I'm afraid that if we use it on a regular basis, this one in particular won't last so much. But yeah, I think the ones we have at the store, they're like the third iteration of this one. So I feel much better about those.
Yes.
I do want to bring up one tool that we talked about briefly, Sebastian, that you made. I thought was really, really cool. The tattoo, the sort of hacked 3D printer tattoo machine. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's a project I've been working on with two other guys, Joan and yeah, they're both French guys. They actually started the project, and I met them 2015, and I sort of saw what they were doing, and I was like, what? I need to be part of this. So we've been working on sort of the summers. We get together twice a year. We meet together and over a conference or a performance, and we've been developing this robotic tattoo machine that at its most basic, you can turn like a vector graphics into a permanent tattoo. But what I found more interesting is like how you expand what's possible. So we've been researching and testing on transforming live bio feedback and that incorporating into live tattoo, or incorporating live audio, and then that sort of generates the design live. So something that nobody knows what it's going to look like before, sort of you're committing to this thing before you.
Very risky.
Yeah. But it's I guess it's part of the whole motivation for getting this kind of tattoo, like the part of that experience.
Yeah, to be a part of the experiment. I wanted to show a picture of the machine, the tattoo machine. And that's the website. So if you're interested in learning more about it, you can check that out. So yeah, they're like generative images, like you were saying. So you don't quite know what you're going to get. And it's a hacked 3D printer that is able to actually etch the permanent ink, right?
Yeah. I guess it's, as you mentioned, it's a hacked 3D printer, and then it has some more sensors to detect the skin and make sure you're not going too deep or not deep enough. And then it's quite exciting to see it working, because there's always like, it's not like you go to the ATM, put your arm in, and then come out with a tattoo. There's people around you making sure that like everything is ready, and then it just happens. It's really fast compared to a handmade tattoo, mainly because you don't have to stop and see what you're doing or recharge ink, because the machine doesn't need to see in that sense. But you're still pressing the skins at the same frequencies.
That's really, really neat. So I know you two both have your own practices. How did you two meet, and how do you find it working together? What sort of distinct or overlapping aspects do you feel that you bring to this joined practice?
So we both met at the school, the Interactive Telecommunication at NYU. We studied together, that's how we met. And most of my practice is about performance, but also using a lot of computational new technology, and also it require a lot of installation and physical components. So I guess that's how we kind of overlap.
I think you mentioned earlier that we started Murakana as our collective practice, but in reality we've been helping each other out with our projects since the beginning, I guess. So I think in that sense our skills have been able to complement each other for all our needs. Like
Mhm.
often in each of our works, you see the other person in the background just making things happen.
I've been noticing that, yes. Yeah, I think it's really interesting because both of your works seem to be exploring what it means to be human or what it means to be alive, but you still have very distinct approaches to it, which we'll get into a little bit now. I definitely want to talk to you too about it has what has changed with performing over the last few months and with the shutdown and the quarantine. It's been such a new challenge for performers. But before I go into that, I just want to talk a little bit about each of your recent work so that people can get an idea of what you've been exploring. And we can start with Tiri. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Deep Talking, which is one of your performances where you created three speaking machines. Can you tell us a little bit about these three different machines? What do they do? And how were you exploring language and mistakes through them?
Yeah, so Deep Talking is a project that it was my thesis for ITP, and I start with the question of like, can machine produce a mistake to help us improvise on top of it? Because this is part of my experience as a performer. Every time I perform, or um, actually, let's say every time it always has a mistake. Even we try so hard to like
Yeah,
make sure everything
there's
works.
always like a technological issue.
Yeah. Or like even like
Yeah.
human mistake or like your collaborator. So I
Mm.
found that it was actually fascinating to see like you try to improvise on top of it. And every time we improvise, it's sort of see the new idea that we wasn't planned, and that's interesting for me. So I asked the question to myself, like, can I just produce like all mistake the whole time? So that's
Mm.
the starting questions, and I've been interested a lot in language and especially doing language or machine learning in language. So I made a bot that has three different characters. One of them is just reply, try to, like whatever it hears, it just try to reply you. And the second one is whatever it hears, is reply you back the rhyming words. And the last one is
Mhm.
the machine learning bot that whatever it hears is tied to say the relate words. That's not just the
Related words.
synonym, but more like the words
Mhm.
that has the relationship that I've been training to. So that show, especially
Mm.
I trained the bot to learn about the opera show, the Phantom of the Opera. So the way they speak is gonna sound like opera, or let's say if
You had
here,
an opera singer
yeah.
sing to the bot, right?
Yeah, so at that show, I have a collaborator named Jen, and she is the real opera singer, and she um, sing the real like opera words, and that also create more mishearing for the computer because sometimes computer mishearing the high pitch or the lower pitch. And then the whole show, basically,
Mhm.
I create the telephone game. So like you say something, it go forever, and then
Mhm.
I don't have any script, and then I just go whatever. Like I talk, and then machine talk back, and then okay, I'll talk this back, and then machine talk this back. My friends sing to it, machine sing this back. So it
Yeah.
was fun and kind of chaotic show, and but I learned a lot from that show, and it's interesting for me that even the machine itself hearing each other also produce a mistake. So it's something that is still hard to make it close to the human talking because the language is something that also involve the culture, it also involve like the times where you were born. Especially me, I didn't grow up here. The way I speak English is
Mhm.
probably like the bot that I also like don't understand the way you use
Yeah.
in the sentence. So it's interesting in terms of narrative as well. So that was the show that I've been doing.
Yeah. I loved how you use these different elements to heighten the error rate of the bot. Like you said, speaking with an accent or singing in a high-pitched voice. Um, yeah, I think that's really fascinating that you're trying to kind of create these machines that do the opposite of what we usually want, which is for them to be kind of perfect, but you're trying to train them to make mistakes and consider how that can inspire human creativity.
Also have some photos.
Yeah. I don't know how to do that.
This is our first time live, so apologize to.
Oh, really? That's great.
Nope.
And another thing that I thought was interesting, you said that the machines also they have their own percentage of accuracy that they believe that they believe how accurate they are in what they give back to you.
Sorry, I'm just hearing the
Machine also evaluates how accurate they think they are
Oh yes.
at
So
what they're hearing from, right?
yes. So from that show, I learned about so I look back to the console, like the back end, before they give me the final decision of what they're hearing. They always guess, oh, maybe she speak this word until it reached the confidence. Okay, this is I guess what I just hear, and then give us the final decision, which is sometimes the second choice or the choice before the final decision is the correct one, but they still to give us the one that they have the most confidence, which is this is somehow related to what we are living right now, like the winner takes all system that like my next purchase of Amazon, like you might purchase this, or if I Google something, my first choice will be this instead of the second choice, and why, and maybe my first choice and your first choice is different. So this is something that I've been interested right now to working on, and then work with that.
Yeah, I guess to make these models more efficient, the machine learning often looks at context outside of the thing itself, and that's how it estimates some level of confidence on something that you say, because the machine thinks it's more likely that you actually said that. I remember in one of Tiri's show, I think she was very excited because her code was working. So she said, "My code is working," and then the machine translated it to "My car is working," just because that's a more likely statement for somebody.
More likely, right.
So it looks like a more broad context, and then it sort of tries to nail into that, which often is not correct.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. Let's go over to Sebastian now. Actually, I had one other question for Tiri, I forgot. So I want to show a picture. I feel that the visual component of your performances are very thoughtful and very strong, really unique. So I wanted to ask you, how do you create, or at what point in the process do you consider these components, these props and accessories or lighting and costume? How do you create these props and accessories, and how do you think about it in the whole scheme of your performance?
Yeah, so especially for the deep talking show, I think it's because of the bot choose mishearing. Also, maybe I'll talk to this one. So this is a work called TK 1971, and this is the show that I made the headpiece, the headpiece that tracking the head position, and then it will change the sound real time depending on how I turn. And so this one I first designed with like the idea of movement. So I want to use the movement of the neck joint, like when you turn. And it's also inspired from the kind of human errors and also glitch of the glitching of the machine. So I also like the error and mistake, and and then I made the headpiece to make it feel like this is like the part of the open of the machine or something, and it also the piece of the head itself is also made from the recycled hockey helmet, and the card is also from
Hockey
the
helmet. Yeah.
and also the card is from the bakery racks. Is that how they call?
Yeah.
Yeah, the bakery racks where they
Yes.
put all the pastries on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I love that you just find these discarded items and it becomes this very futuristic
yeah. So
prop.
I also think about like because of the concept is about glitching and the human errors, and that show was a concept of me trying to become a robot, and at the end is error, at the end is broken, the sound is broken, the light is broken. So the lighting was designed for make it like changing by the time I turn it. So every time I turn and it's drama changing, the light will start to have
Oh, wow. Yeah.
drama pattern. And so that's how I kind of built on the aesthetic and like why, like, do I need this? Like maybe I need some light, and the part that the breath, the tool for the note is also relate to one of my research when I studying this piece is about like how humans speak compared to the robot speak. So as a human, you speak and then you have to breathe because you are the human, and then like and then you are like when you inhale or exhale, that creates the rhythm of the way you're speaking. So that's how I also adding the pressure sensor for that piece. So that's I guess that's how I build up the work. It's more like from the research and then like add on, and then if I found some trash and add components.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's very very visually striking, I think, your performances. So it kind of, even if you don't yet know all the layers that go into it, it's already appealing, just as a visual performance. Okay, let's go to Sebastian now. I wanted to hear a little bit about Symbiosis Live, which is a really, really fascinating project where you're considering, well, you brought together two very different kinds of organisms. One is an internet bot, and one is an actual primitive cell organism, and you brought it together into one symbiotic environment. So, how did you think about bringing these two organisms together, and how did they feed off each other?
I guess the project started by me looking sort of at my website logs in my server, and then just seeing all this automated traffic that I had no idea where it was coming from or why it was coming from, but it was certainly coming. And the more I started researching into it, the more I started like visualizing parallels between internet bots and very like primitive biological organisms, and I started seeing them almost like living organisms, which sort of started me into a like trajectory of or researching what it means to be living. Like, I don't mean like what is the meaning of life. I mean more like what makes something living versus non-living. Like, are we alive? And then this computer keyboard is not alive.
Yeah.
And then quickly realizing that among the scientific community, there's no consensus of like something is alive if this. There's sort of guidelines, or there's like one of the most popular models is like there's this 7 rules, and if you have like more than 5, then you're probably alive.
Probably.
Yeah, like there's no real consensus. Like there's, and then some of those rules are sort of like have like this circular logic where like it's all defining based on its definition. And then I came across a thought that I thought was particularly interesting by a philosopher and a doctor in astrology. And she,
Yeah, astrology.
astrology. She was saying that we should stop focusing on trying to come up with a definition, and it would be much better to try to understand where, like, come up with theories of life, where life comes from. So at that point, I said, like, okay, I'm not gonna focus on definitions. I'm gonna relax my own definitions, and I'm gonna assume that these organisms are living or are really alive. So what would happen if these organisms would be able to connect to our own primitive organisms? What would happen if they were able to influence each other and sort of start interacting, not necessarily like knowing that the other exists, but just clashing against each other, because these organisms don't really have like when you think of a single cell, like it's just one cell. It cannot have, at least from my belief or understanding, there's very limited things it can feel or do or sense, being with just one cell. So its experience is very limited, but it can still have very interesting response to stimuli and like behaviors and nature. So what would happen if these two were able to create some links? So that's how I started creating the symbiosis.live, which is a website where you could see, humans could see the ecosystem take place.
I'm
And
going to show what that
yeah,
website looked like. So this is what you would see when you went onto the website symbiosis.live.
yeah. So it was a live stream of the microscope as well as a live stream of the bots in the servers, and then you would start seeing how they start affecting each other, and in a simple way, the more bots that arrive, then they would start feeding, releasing nutrition into the tanks into the bioreactor, and then the cells, by their numbers, they would sort of control the gates of the servers, making it more or less attractive for other bots to come. So they started sort of controlling each other's environment in that sense.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about how did you make a website to attract the bot, or how the bot will see as a bot?
Yeah, so bots don't see the internet the same way that we do. They don't see the internet. They just sort of parse the text or the responses of communication. So depending on different types of, I guess maybe I should talk a little bit about different types of bots and what are they, because some people might be familiar with it.
Yeah.
So bots are pieces of software that are program to do an automatic task. In this case, when we refer to internet bots, normally we talk about like bots. Nowadays, it's very common to hear about like Facebook bots or Twitter bots, and these are bots that are programmed to go into messaging boards and then just insert certain sentences to try to drive communication or discourse into one direction or another. But bots really have much. They appeared at the beginning of the internet back in the 90s, or like when the internet started becoming sort of mainstream. And one of the main things they were doing is just indexing content. Like, for example, the Google bot, it would go to every single website you would find and see what's inside, and then sort of see that this website has pizza, and then it's also in New York. So when you search pizza in New York, it would sort of show you this because it actually went to that website and read what was inside and indexed everything. So like that bot, there's also other bots trying to like find forms, and if they find a form, they will just write whatever and then just send the form, or try to.
They're quite advanced.
Yeah, I mean they're advanced and not, because they only do one thing. So they're they're just, in that sense, they're very primitive. If they don't find that thing, they keep going. And then sometimes they communicate with other bots, and then you have other bot that comes and see. So in that sense, it's hard to trace like one organism, what is one organism versus a larger organism. But the same thing happens in nature. Like when you think about like a bee versus like a beehive, or like the whole ecosystem, trying to define one organism sometimes is challenging because everything sort of moves each other. So in bots, you call that a bot net, sort of like a conglomerate of bots that act together. And you see that sometimes when for example, a very common bot that I was interacting with was looking for WordPress login sites. So if it finds a WordPress login site, it will try username and a password.
It's really trying to hack it.
Trying to like gain access to the WordPress site. So Symbiosis.live would sort of look at different bots coming in and try to understand what they're looking for, and based on that, it would generate content for them. So if they were looking for links or content, it would just create jargon or like just this text links and give it back. It would generate phone numbers, it would generate email addresses, but it will also generate login sites for like WordPress or some PHP sites or different type of access points. And then you would see like sometimes it would immediately after different bots from somewhere else in the world would start arriving and trying different passwords, different usernames. In that sense, it became very. You could see how the organism is like sort of communicating, behaving as a.
And you can actually watch all of this happening.
Yeah, you would be able to see it live, and as well as the cells moving into water, looking for nutrients.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's really fascinating. I think that there was one quote that you had that I was curious about. You said on the internet there are more bots than humans, just like we have more foreign cells in our body than our own. And I think that your work is very much, kind of questioning what's alive and what's not, but also what's foreign and what's native, and whether there is a distinction between them, especially now when we're more and more absorbed in the technologies of our lives and more kind of emotionally involved in them as well.
Yeah, I think the quote also, or that sentence, that thought also goes to like roles, like the role of our experience, like who has control over what, because these organisms that we don't see, they we can only observe them mediated through some sort of technology. In this case, like a microscope or some computer. But they really affect our entire experience of what we see, what we don't see, how we feel, what we want to eat for dinner. It's just in that sense they control a lot of what we don't really.
Kind of like
know.
what Jerry was saying about the also what the machine decides to give you, what they decide is most accurate, and they just give you their one top choice. So even if we have all these choices, we're kind of just given, we're very influenced or very controlled by all of this, these bots and technology. So I wanted to talk a little bit about performance in this time. I think that when the shutdown happened, performing artists in particular had a real challenge of how they were going to continue creating and sharing. And I know that the two of you have been quite active during this time performing online. So I wanted to ask you, what have you found has been different about performing live versus online, and perhaps what is lost or what is gained in this new platform?
Yes, so I'll start with like my feeling like when the first quarantine started. I just be honest that I started to freak out because like most of my work is physical and performing like needs to be live.
She had a performance like in a week
coming
before like the official shutdown. So it was like the panic of like
what happened. But I would like to shout out to Culture Hub where I residency at. So they act pretty fast and so they've been switching everything to be online, and they also developed the program called Live Lab, which is like a web browser that you can do like video call platform, but from their own side, so it's kind of like private and not sharing information, just us. And they've been doing the show called Downtown Variety, which is basically just like, okay, this happened, let's just test it on, let's just try something out. And then I was joining them for the first month, and that's how I learned that it's actually quite interesting and quite scary. Like first of all, as a performer, when you change everything to be behind a screen and then without the audience, is you lost the feedback from the audience, you lost the feedback from human, I guess. Like you basically have to look on the screen, and what is weird for me is like you also look at yourself on the screen, like instead of just like focusing on, I don't know, a script or like things, which is like have all, like most of my work is also like dealing with a lot of text in the same times. But I have to learn myself. I have to deal with the streaming platform and also like sound. And I remember my first time is like the whole effect of sound didn't work, and I didn't know the whole show, which is good to
learn. I remember like because it was one of the tests. I mean, it wasn't a real like we were using it as a test, but it was live to the audience. And I didn't know, like I realized, but I didn't know how to tell her. She was like plugging in with headphones and like looking at her screen, and I was like trying to move things around.
But it's quite good. I mean, in a sense, I mean, it lost some parts, but it still forced us to like create some new platform. And apparently, I think we actually, like, since this quarantine happened, actually gave us more opportunity to test and try on something. Like we also did the performance with you guys with Brit, and doing the jam that it probably hard to do in physical because we all didn't live in the same place, and then once it's like okay quarantine, we can maybe somehow do it on the video call, and then try something that we never tried before, which is that I think that was the good part of
Yeah.
the performing online.
You can definitely direct more the performance because people are only going to be seeing at
You can
this
direct
frame,
people,
or this frame,
attention.
or this frame. So they're not, I mean, that, and also like the meal in their kitchen, but like because you don't know what they're doing. But in terms of you presenting something, you have a lot of control on what that might be.
Yeah.
One of my show is just like crop my face, but something wrong. So I just like use my hand just to like step. It's like something wrong, go check. So no one sees.
Oh, I saw this one where you created your a replica of your. I don't know how you did that, like a stand-in for yourself
Which
that you
show?
could put there when you needed to. No, just I saw it on your Instagram. Do you know what I'm talking about, Seb?
I mean, this is
That
something
was
that
so
we've
funny.
been experimenting and playing a lot.
Yeah.
You can
So
you
that-
can go between being live and being recorded very seamlessly. So
Yeah.
we've tried some of those experiments where
I use a green screen and I have the video record that I record just before. So you have the same outfit and then you sort of like play with the.
yeah, and then maybe you switch to like a different camera input, and then it's like you can go prep something else in the meantime.
Yeah.
So that's a good part of like this platform, and I kind of like it too. I mean, we would love to go back to physical,
Yeah.
but this is forced us to be more creative, and we've been research a lot. And part of my collective, Nuam Collective, we also did a lot of movement research, and we try to find a way to participate with the audience. Since we love the feedback, how can I get the feedback from the audience and things like
Yeah.
that? So it's been
So
challenging.
what have you experimented with so far with how to get feedback from the audience?
So the next show, which is we still postpone, like we're not sure the date, but we're planning to do it's the show, it's called Can You See Me? And this is a part of the collective of Noam Collective with Mimi Yin and Nini Domye. And we basically do just like the face and just the crop of the hand movement and all about choreograph. And we experiment with the audience can open another website and then they can feed the sound. Basically, we get the sound data from them. We didn't get what they say, but more like how loud they've been saying, and then when they stop, and then that will affect the frame of the performer. So it will crop to the eyes, and then we use machine learning to find the random joy. So it will crop with the eyes, sometimes the nose, the hand gesture. So, and it will kind of direct back and forth to the performer that, oh, there's someone, maybe they might shout or they might just speak normally, but then it crop, and then now it's cropped to the eye. Maybe I dance with just the eye. Now it's cropped with the hand. Maybe I'll dance on the hands, and it's also like we also set it more like a question. Like I ask the question and then the audience answer, but also the delay. That was the part that we struggling with, but we use it as a part of the show. So when I ask the question, the audience answer. The audience will hear us on time, but the audience answer will delay 20 seconds before going to us. So something like that is something that we experiment with.
Yeah. That's really interesting. So those are ways that the audience can participate. If you didn't have audience participation, do you feel like does it still make a difference to perform live, or do you still feel like a sense of, I don't know, adrenaline of those eyeballs being on you at that time? Or do you feel like it could be pre-recorded and doesn't have so much difference?
Yeah, for me, I would feel that. Like, it feels like it could be just a pre-record and then probably quality better in terms of sound and
Yeah.
internet.
I mean, I think this question goes back to like a lot of the work we've been doing even before is like because a lot of the work they do with Noam is like improvisation or performance in improvisation, and one of the questions is like, how can you tell the audience that this is happening live and we're coming up with it right now as opposed to all pre-choreographed?
Yeah.
And then the questions has like another layer when everything's online now, and then it's like, does it even have to be live? Can we just do it pre-recorded? So we have been thinking about this like months now at this point. But I think there is a personal level. You're a very different. I don't know, like I don't want to say mindset, but like state of being where you're like know that this is live. Like you start sweating just because of like you know it's happening live and like something's not happening.
Yeah. I think it's also interesting from the audience member and the viewer's standpoint as well. In a way, when you go to a performance, if you have to actually travel to a performance, are you more invested than if you just open your browser and tune in? That's also, I think, something that I've been experiencing as well as a viewer. So you, Tiri, or actually both of you are in it. You have an upcoming show on between July 15th to 18th.
Yes, it's
with Network Music Festival.
Yes.
Yes. So anybody can tune in to watch that.
Yeah, it's they are based in UK, so the time is it's the UK time, so it's gonna be on the July 16 at 3 o'clock here.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the other thing about being online. We've done these shows in Estonia, then another one in the UK. Like it opens those. Things.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. So everybody should check out that show. I like the description of it. It kind of sounds like the joke of people who walk into a bar. So the summary is a pianist, a guitarist, 2 readers, and a bot meet online for a live performance.
Mm-hmm.
So that's July 16th at 3 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I had a lot of other questions, but I think our time is up. If anybody has any questions they want to ask, now is the time. And I also just want to show everybody your websites so that you can check out more of their work. Here it is. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thanks for setting this up.
So yes, everybody should check out Special. If you're in the neighborhood, if you're in the area, come and see the show the next 2 months and discover the Dongle Synth, and you can play with it live at the space as well. What is your next project?
Our next project's
not next, but next.
Wait, do we have like 1 minute or how long do we have?
Yeah.
It's not gonna cut off at like.
Oh no, we do have 1 minute. Oh my gosh. Okay, go.
I didn't know we are starting our teaching at SFPC. We're having our summer session with Harvard, and it starts on Friday with Sewe and Taylor. We're excited about that.
So we're also showing the work at Special in the same show.